This lecture will explain in a quick how-to guide the process of diagramming and analyzing arguments, with a focus on the analysis of arguments. So the first step will be, of course, to diagram the argument. And these are all just a review of the steps, but I won't go through that now. If you need a refresher on diagramming arguments, you can go back and listen to the lecture on diagramming arguments again. So the second step is to assess the argument's form. The first question we'll want to ask before we even start is to ask, what kind of argument is it? Is the argument a deductive argument or a non-deductive argument? Once you've established what kind of argument it is, you now know what kind of analysis of the argument's form is appropriate. So if the argument is a deductive argument, we will be asking if it is valid or invalid. And we will have two different methods for determining this, which will be covered in later lectures, in separate lectures that will be for today. If the argument is a non-deductive argument, we want to know if it's a strong argument or a weak argument. Unlike validity, the strength of an argument comes in degrees. So a deductive argument is either valid or invalid. There's no halfway point. There's no such thing as kind of valid. But a non-deductive argument can be very strong, kind of strong, so-so, halfway between strong and weak. At that point, you might start calling it weak, but then there's weak and there's very weak. So if you have something that's like 50% of people are X, well, that wouldn't be a very strong argument, but it's not the weakest possible argument either. So you can see that will come in degrees. So sometimes it's going to be a judgment call. The third step is to assess the argument's content, which basically amounts to asking, are all of the premises true in the real world? Now, a lot of times the arguments are going to be about something that you don't particularly know anything about. It depends on your content knowledge. So if you don't know if something's true or false, try looking it up. That's the first sort of line of attack. However, if you're still unsure after looking it up, or if it's the sort of thing you can't really look up, then you need to take a stand. You need to give your opinion. Do you think the premises are true or false? You probably have an opinion, and you probably have reasons for that opinion. So what you need to do is explain those reasons to your reader as part of your analysis, and explain that you think it's true or you think it's false, and why you think that. And that will be sufficient for our purposes. Then, step 4, we will ask if the argument is sound or cogent or not. So if it's a deductive argument, we're going to be asking if the argument is sound, and if it's a non-deductive argument, we're going to be asking if it's cogent. So once you've assessed both the form and the content of the argument, then you're now in a position to say whether the argument is sound. If it passes both the form and content test, then it is sound or cogent, as the case may be. So if an argument is both valid and all the premises are true in the real world, it is a sound argument. If the argument is strong and all of the premises are true in the real world, then it's a cogent argument. Now, technically, you only need to assess one of these aspects, and if it fails on that aspect, then you know it's unsound or uncogent. So if an argument is invalid, it is automatically unsound. And if it's a weak argument, it's automatically uncogent. Likewise, if at least one of the premises is false, then it is either unsound or uncogent, as the case may be. However, I am going to ask you to assess both aspects for every argument that you assess, just for completeness sake, and so that I know you can do both kinds of analysis.